So the film we all just saw, I think, is a perfect launching point for talking about compassionate care and end-of-life issues in Canada. My name is Grace Pastine. I'm the litigation director for the BC Civil Liberties Association. And I'm just going to say a few brief words, and then I'm going to introduce the rest of our panelists here tonight. Unlike Oregon and numerous other countries and jurisdictions across the world, in Canada, it is a criminal offense to assist seriously and incurably ill individuals to die with dignity. So that means that seriously ill people like Cody Curtis, who you saw in the film tonight, are suffering against their wishes at the end of life. Sometimes they are making these very difficult medical decisions without the advice of healthcare professionals, sometimes turning to violent and drastic means, alone and without the comfort of family. At the BC Civil Liberties Association, we believe, and we have long believed, that all Canadians should have choice in dying. That is, that they should be able to have what they consider to be a good death. And that would include a medically assisted death. To that end, this year, the BC Civil Liberties Association launched a very ambitious and monumental lawsuit to challenge what we see as being very cruel laws. Our case is moving ahead very quickly, and it is scheduled to be heard in November. What is at the heart of this case is the belief that choosing the time and manner of one's death is one of the most profoundly personal choices an individual is likely to make in their lifetime. What we're doing is asking the court to recognize where these deeply personal and private decisions regarding end-of-life care are involved, the law should entrust those decisions to the individuals whose lives are at stake and not to the government. So this lawsuit has been brought forward by 4 very courageous plaintiffs, and 2 of those plaintiffs are here with us tonight on this panel, Lee Carter and Hollis Johnson, and they will discuss their story and why they decided to step forward to help challenge these laws. Also here tonight is Alison Latimer, and she is part of a small, outstanding, and incredibly dedicated team of lawyers who are bringing forward this case to the court. Alison, as well as all the other lawyers on the case, are dedicating their time pro bono to do this, and their tireless work and dedication is really a credit to the legal profession. So now each of our panelists are going to share a few words with you. I'll have a few more words to say, and then we'd be very happy to take any questions that people in the audience might have. So with that, Lee Carter is going to share some words with you.
Well, I got to the point that she could not move herself and she couldn't eat by herself. She was incontinent and totally dependent on others. She realized that she wanted to die, and to die with dignity. I'd like to tell you a little bit about this wonderful woman. She was intelligent, she was fiercely independent, she played music, she walked, she enjoyed cultural events, read a great deal, interested in politics, book club, and generally interested in what others were doing. She had a tremendous sense of fair play that extended from our immediate family to all of those around her. She was bright, sharp, and articulate up until the very day that she died. In 2008, her health took a turn for the worse, and her social life and activities outside her home diminished. She was admitted to a care facility in 2008, where her condition deteriorated quite rapidly. In August of 2009, she got the idea that she would go to Switzerland, where out-of-country persons can qualify for assisted suicide. She approached my brothers and sisters with her plan. She asked me if I would help her contact the necessary channels to move forward with her wish to die with dignity. I contacted Dignitas in Switzerland, and the process unfolded from there. On behalf of Kay, Hollis, and I did all of the planning, the paperwork, the communicating, the computer work with Dignitas. We went to doctors' offices, government agencies, notaries, lawyers, arranged hotels, airline tickets, and money transfers. There was a multitude of papers to complete because Switzerland is very particular about the documentation, that it be thorough. It was extensive in that we sent over 45 pages of paperwork just in one mailing that would enable us to qualify for the assisted suicide. There were a number of issues that made this process difficult. The entire family was forced to be silent about the process for fear that authorities would halt the procedure. Because of the secrecy, supporting documents were then more difficult to obtain. The price tag was over $30,000, and that was over a 6-month period. And for Kate Carter, it was the fear that she could not make the journey overseas because of her deteriorating health. And all of the anxiety and the stress related to this covert operation could have been avoided, not to mention the cost, if we were allowed to have a physician-assisted death in Canada. It was her greatest wish that all Canadians had the choice to be able to die with dignity in our own country, surrounded by loved ones. So yes, I'm supporting her dream and honoring her vision that one day we have physician-assisted deaths permitted in Canada. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hollis Johnson, and I was part of the team that brought Kate over to Switzerland, to Zurich, to accomplish her wish, which was to die with dignity. And I think probably what I'd like to do is to wrap our experience into what I just viewed, and we all viewed in terms of the documentary film that we just saw. And that is just the feeling that that in this country it is, or could be construed as a criminal offense, and both Lee and I could have been prosecuted along with others who want to assist loved ones at that moment in their life when they're making a very important and very significant and choice. And I think that for us, as we help Kate to realize her dream, that one of the things that was constantly brought home to us was this feeling that we're skulking around, that we've got a secret that we have to keep, that we couldn't inform in any kind of a genuine way why we were taking my mother-in-law, Lee's mom, over to, we told them we were going to Toronto for a visit with her sister. And this had huge implications for us personally. Like most Canadians, we like to pride ourselves in being forthright with friends, family, and certainly authorities. There were instances where we had to outright lie to people in order to accomplish our task, which was to, again, realize Kate's dream. So for us, parts of it were a real nightmare. And I think for that reason, and also that knowing Kate, Katie, she was, as Lee said, a very dignified woman, a very civically engaged woman, and she would want to have this discussion with Canadians. So for Lee and I, it was, in a sense, a no-brainer that we would assist her because of our deep love for her, but also that we would carry on and have some kind of a public discussion with Canadians about this issue, because we think it's critical now. It's been over 2 decades since the Sue Rodriguez case. We think that there's been a groundswell in terms of a change with respect to public opinion about this issue. And the demographics in Canada have switched. We're more of an aging population. And so the time is right, and it's important that we have an honest debate, discussion about this issue. And I'd also like to say as a final thing that I am so thankful for groups like the BC Civil Liberties Union or Association, and also for the legal team that is part of this initiative, because I don't think that this is something that politicians would touch with a barge pole. And so thank goodness we have groups like this and people who are willing to work pro bono to advance this issue and put it as part of the public forum. So thank you, and I really appreciate your all being here and with a chance to listen to our story.
We say that the ban on physician-assisted suicide is not necessary to protect vulnerable people. And the reason we know this is because of these other jurisdictions like Oregon and Washington and the Netherlands and many other jurisdictions where physician-assisted death has been decriminalized, and studies have shown that vulnerable people have not been disproportionately accessing those laws. Canada's ban on physician-assisted death is also not necessary to promote other healthcare options like palliative care and pain management. And again, we know this because there are studies that have shown that in other jurisdictions, the people who are accessing this treatment had access to palliative care and hospice care, and that in fact, palliative care and physician-assisted death can work together. So we say the seriousness of the consequences of the law and the effect it has on people like Kay and like Gloria Taylor and other of our plaintiffs and the other witnesses in this case is so extreme, and it's so out of proportion to any benefit that the state can hope to gain from the law that it's just completely unacceptable. And almost 20 years ago, after the Supreme Court of Canada rejected her plea for choice in dying, it was reported that Sue Rodriguez did take her own life with the help of an anonymous physician. So we know that it's also already possible to access illegal and unregulated and sometimes physician-assisted dying in the back alley. And that raises real questions about how effective the law is in protecting the vulnerable. And that's a really important question to consider. And I've already said that what we're asking for in this lawsuit is choice in healthcare. And we want Canadians to have this choice, including the option of medically assisted death. And we consider the alternative, which is extended, intolerable suffering against the patient's wishes, to be an unacceptable outcome for Canadians and one that is contrary to our constitutional rights and freedoms.
As you can probably gather from our panelists here tonight, the lawsuit that we are bringing forward is truly a very collaborative effort, and it relies on the great courage of individuals like Lee and Hollis, who are willing to come forward, even to face criminal prosecution, to share their story with the court, and it relies on lawyers such as Alison Latimer, who works so tirelessly on this issue. And perhaps even most notably, it is built on the willingness of a number of seriously and incurably ill Canadians and their loved ones to come forward and publicly share their stories with the court. And their stories are very personal and very urgent. And I would like to just share a few of those stories with you. Many Canadians who are directly impacted by these laws have provided affidavits in our case. And what they state over and over again is that it is only the person who is facing illness and death who can decide whether the quality of their life justifies enduring whatever pain and suffering they happen to be experiencing. So one very courageous Canadian woman with multiple sclerosis provided a powerful affidavit in this case. And in her affidavit, she has discussed how MS affects her life, and I'm just going to share a few parts of that affidavit with you. She wrote, "My condition has deteriorated rather quickly in the past 4 years. I am presently confined to a wheelchair. I require full-time assistance to help me with the activities of daily living, including preparing my food, dressing and bathing, transferring from my wheelchair. It is very difficult for me to find comfort in any position for any period of time, whether during the day or night when I should be sleeping. Simple tasks are a struggle and exhaust me. I cannot walk up or down even a single stair without 2 people assisting me and without going through extreme stress, anxiety, and exhaustion. Even the simple act of getting into bed is an exhausting ordeal and requires assistance. Getting out of bed is even more difficult. Turning over in bed is a similar ordeal. I live with constant fatigue." And then she also went on in her affidavit to provide evidence to the court about how the current state of the law that prohibits physician-assisted dying diminishes her quality of life right now. She said, "While my quality of life today has been severely compromised, I'm not contemplating ending my life at this time. However, in addition, my life is further compromised on a daily basis by the terrifying fears that the current state of Canadian law will deprive me of the possibility of a physician-assisted death if and when I should become desirous of that service as a means to end my suffering. This is not an abstract concern. The idea that if I wait too long to end my own life, I will be unable to do so if and when I wish to is a stressful, anxiety-provoking thought that I live with daily. It constantly and dramatically affects my ability to actually and fully enjoy whatever quality of life I am able to achieve now or will be able to achieve in the future." In addition to Canadians who are seriously and incurably ill, family members of those who are ill have also stepped forward to provide evidence to the court. One Canadian woman who is married to a man with fairly late-stage Huntington's disease also provided an affidavit in this case. Huntington's disease is a progressive neurological disorder. And I thought it would be worthwhile to share just a couple of her words with you as well. "I'm aware that it is my husband's wish to end his life before his disease progresses to a point that life is no longer worth living for him. We have had many discussions over the years about the progression of his disease and his end-of-life choices. I have repeatedly told him that I hope he will keep extending the amount of time that he wishes to remain alive. However, I have also told him that I understand that this is a decision that I cannot make for him. It is his health, his life, and ultimately his decision. When he is ready to go, it will be his decision. It is my great hope that my husband will continue to live for as long as possible. It will be extremely hard for me when he decides to end his life. Nonetheless, I strongly believe that I must be prepared to let him go. It's not love to hold on to him for too long against his will and his wishes. There is love in the letting go." So these are but a couple of the many Canadians who have shared their personal and powerful stories with the court in order to change the laws in Canada. And before we open this up for question and answer, I know that many of you in the audience may be wondering how you can assist with this case and with this collaborative effort to change the laws and uphold human rights. And I'll mention 2 ways. If you or a loved one are seriously and incurably ill and would like choice in dying, and you are willing to lend your name to this cause, please provide one of our volunteers here tonight with your contact information, or contact us via our website. You may be able to assist in this lawsuit, and we have volunteers who are outside at our BCCLA table who would be happy to speak with you, or come up to me after this discussion. And finally, I would be very remiss if I didn't say that it would be incredibly helpful if any of you could make a contribution tonight or become a member of the BC Civil Liberties Association. We have pamphlets that are available outside, just at the entrance of the theater, and we've set up a desk where you can make a contribution tonight. Basically, this case is funded by people like you. So thank you very much for being here tonight and for your time and your interest in this issue. And now, if you have any questions for our panelists, we'd be more than happy to talk with you. Yes, right there. Well, you mentioned the issue of safeguards, and that is absolutely critical. And what we argue in our lawsuit is that for essentially what we're advocating for is for legislation that would allow only those people who are seriously and incurably ill and who are mentally competent to make the choice to end their life with dignity. A number of jurisdictions around the world have blueprints of what this legislation might ultimately look like, and Oregon is a really great example of a jurisdiction that has implemented legislation that has plenty of upfront safeguards, and that's certainly what we are advocating for. There are a number of safeguards that can be put in place. The fact that it is a medical model that is overseen by physicians is one of those safeguards. So it's quite likely that model legislation might have the requirement that an individual meet with more than one physician, maybe a couple of physicians, that certify that the individual is indeed seriously and incurably ill. Some jurisdictions around the world require a psychological assessment to ensure that the individual is competent. In other places, there is a requirement that the decision to end one's life be expressed a number of times, and that there be a waiting period before the individual is able to access a prescription that would enable them to end their life. So there are a number of upfront safeguards that we think are very important. And finally, I would just add that thankfully in Canada, some of the issues that are of concern in the United States, such as individuals being unable to access health care, are much less of a problem here.
Sorry, if I could just make a comment.
Could you repeat the question, please?
It's just a comment that the current system does not cover all cancer treatment. And that may be, I don't have firsthand knowledge of that, but I do know that the current medical system does not cover all medically necessary treatment. But if that's a problem, as you say it is, I guess that's already a problem for people who need that treatment. And so having another option at end of life doesn't exacerbate that problem. It's just another option. It's a choice for the person. Sure. Well, our lawsuit actually contemplates two different kinds of situations that might arise. So first you would have physician-assisted suicide. And that would be where the physician would prescribe life-ending medication, and the patient would take the medication themselves, and that would be that might be what you would call physician-assisted suicide. That's sort of the Oregon model. Another option that we've raised in our lawsuit is physician-assisted dying. That's where you have a person who is physically unable to take the medication, but is competent, has capacity, and has expressed a continuing, genuine desire to die. And in that case, the physician would administer the medication for them, and that would be under specific safeguards.
I couldn't agree with you more, and for me, that's a very compelling argument to bring it here in Canada so that people don't have to suffer the kind of expense that we had to endure in order to, and all of the travails that go along with that, including separation from family and friends, in order to accomplish my mother-in-law's wish.
Yeah, Alzheimer's is a really tough issue, and our lawsuit doesn't go that far. Our lawsuit does not contemplate advance directives it doesn't contemplate physician-assisted dying where the person is no longer competent. So all that our lawsuit could achieve is physician-assisted dying for competent people. And the question of whether that would be extended at in a different lawsuit, a different time, a different set of facts, that's possible, but that's not our case. Yeah, this is a civil constitutional case, and it's being brought by summary trial, which means that most of the evidence will be going in written form. So as opposed to witnesses testifying on the stand, mostly it will be written affidavits before the judge.
And the follow-up question, the basis of the claim is just constitutional, seeking changes,
We're seeking constitutional declarations, and we're seeking to strike down the laws that prohibit physician-assisted suicide. Often when you get a law struck down under the Constitution, what the court will do is they'll suspend the declaration for a period of time to give the government a chance to react and enact something that is constitutionally supportable.
So I know I know there may be some more questions, but it was a long meeting and I mean a long movie, and we did promise VIFF that we would not occupy their theater indefinitely. So I think that we'll end this here, but I want to thank you all very much for staying for this panel and being part of this discussion. So thank you.